Hey, you. My name is Jer. My pronouns are they and them. I'm in Mexico City right now. And in this video, I'm going to talk about Recovery Dharma, a program where we heal from all types of addiction using Buddhist principles and practice. I'm going to dig into some stuff about the program, some stuff about the Buddhist ideas and what that means to us inside the program, as well as how you can get involved. My hope is that this will help new people who aren't familiar with the program get a sense of what it is, if it might be for them, and all that. So, jumping into a quick summary of what is Recovery Dharma. So, it's like AA or other 12-step programs where there's a combination of meetings and literature and practices that you get involved with in order to work on your addiction, to stop doing something you don't want to do, of course. There are hundreds of meetings. You can go to recoverydharma.org, the website, and look up the meeting list, and you'll find that there's hundreds of online meetings happening every week. They're basically all day, every day. If you need a meeting, you can find one. If you are watching this right now and you need recovery, like jump into a meeting, pause the video. You can finish it later. Go see when the next meeting is and join one if it's just getting started. The meeting is actually a great way to learn about the program because there's readings and explanations of everything about the program right there in every single meeting. They're all appropriate for beginners. So don't even worry about that. Just find one that includes you and get started. The other thing I'll recommend is, of course, the book. Recovery Dharma is a wonderful, short, and accessible book. You can get it, the cheap print copies like this from Amazon are like almost free, and then you can get it completely for free in digital format. So you can get it for a Kindle or an Apple Books app. There's also an audiobook you can get by just going to your podcast app and searching for Recovery Dharma audiobook, and you'll find it. So it's very accessible. It's a great way to learn about the program. It's not a long read. There's actually a bunch of meditations at the end, so it's even shorter than it seems. And this is going to give you the essence of both Buddhism and Recovery Dharma at the same time. So it's a really, really great read, whether you plan to get involved with the program long term or not. I completely recommend it. Um, a little bit about me and the person who's talking to you. I have been in Recovery Dharma more or less for 5 years. I've been sober for 5 years from weed and alcohol, which were the things that brought me to the program, and I found it invaluable. I find it hard to imagine living without the meetings, living without the meditation, which is, of course, a big part of this of Buddhism and of this program. And I'll talk more about all of that in a bit. Um, to get more into the program, I was thinking I would frame it in terms of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So I hope I'm not overwhelming you by jumping into some ancient Pali is the language for that. Sanskrit is the other language that you might have heard of. Um, but I want those are three concepts. The book is based on them. Like the book has three main sections: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And I thought it would be cute for my video. And so Buddha means awakening, Dharma means the teachings, and Sangha means the community. And so these are sort of the three pillars of Recovery Dharma and Buddhism, both. So we'll start with Buddha, which can be a bit intense, and some people are a bit intimidated about the idea. They don't want to join a religion, they want to just get sober. And what I'll say is that this program is based on a religion, really unambiguously, in a way that AA kind of says it's not Christian. And that may or may not be true. I don't know. It's up for each person to decide if they think that AA is secular or not. But I would say Recovery Dharma leans into the religion, right? We're not saying, oh, no, it's not religious. Although we are. You don't have to be religious in order to participate, is the most important thing, right? There's the slogan, Buddha required, no, Buddha inspired, not Buddha required. You can 100% join these meetings and participate without having a really religious, metaphysical relationship with Buddhism. Although on some level, it's going to be spiritual, and we're going to hope it's going to be somehow a little bit spiritual, because that's part of what makes it work, right? That's this part of the secret ingredient that makes meditation effective, and that's going to help you stay inspired in your recovery. So that's kind of my personal opinion. The official line is that it is completely secular. It is an interpretation of Buddhism based on the oldest kind of Buddhism on some level, what's often called early Buddhism. So it avoids a lot of the elements of some kinds of Buddhism that are more devotional, where it's you're praying to saints and bodhisattvas and Buddhas and things like that. We don't pray to the Buddha. We pray to ourselves. We do a meditation of introspection and of cultivating positive, loving emotions. And that is religious. That's from the religion, but we sort of use it as tools from the religion without trying to ask people to come to any conclusions, right? The Buddha often talked in the old suttas, the written down teachings. He talked about how he didn't want anyone to have blind faith in him. He was very much against blind faith. He wanted people to try it, learn about it, try it, and have a faith that was based on their own experiences, right? Have a confidence in the effectiveness of these teachings and of these practices based on their own experiences. And that's 100% what Recovery Dharma is proposing, right? Take what's useful and leave the rest, right? And personally, I am a Buddhist. I consider myself a Buddhist. I try to apply these practices in a way that is deeply spiritual, but I'm also an atheist, and those things are completely compatible as far as I'm concerned. The Buddha, the original man in ancient India, was not an atheist. He believed in gods because he thought they were just like these people in the sky, and he thought they too needed enlightenment. So anyway, I won't dig into any more of that. I just wanted to address that question of, do you have to be religious? No. Might you become a little more religious than you thought you would, like me, an ardent atheist who now says prayers in the morning? Maybe. I don't know. If it's good, if it keeps you sober and helps you enjoy your recovery, then we encourage it. But we at no way demand it. And tons of people are here enjoying Recovery Dharma. Lots of Christians enjoy Recovery Dharma because it's really just compatible with everything. What is the basis of the program? It's renunciation, right? And that's a sort of fancy word. It's a $10 word that means giving things up, right? And Buddhism is based on renunciation. The mainstream Buddhism is all about monks, and monks give everything up, monastics and monks and nuns. They are not allowed to own their own clothes. They're not allowed to pick their food, right? They take everything that you could be addicted to and renounce it, including having a comfortable bed, And the practices of Buddhism are based on trying to make that a lifestyle that works. And so when you take the practices of Buddhism, which are helping monks, of course, they're not drinking and smoking and stuff, right? They're not even allowed to go see plays according to the old rules. So those are really good practices to help you give up something that you think is bad for you. And the thing about monks is they think that what's bad for them is everything that stops them from gaining complete enlightenment. For us, we're not so hardcore. We just want to stop doing the chemicals and behaviors that are really, really toxic to us. But the things like meditation and practicing an ethical life and thoughtfulness, these help us achieve the renunciation we want, which is usually renunciation of drugs and alcohol and toxic behaviors, which we call process addictions, is all those other types of addiction like gambling and love and things like that. So it's renunciation. It's making the decision to say, I don't want this anymore, and I'm going to build my life around being happy without it. And I'll say it's a type of renunciation. It's a type of letting go. Rather than being obsessed with our addictions, we try to become super chill with them, relaxed with our addictions enough that we can not do them without suffering. And that is really important. Some aspects of the program that are relevant here is that there's no leaders. We don't have prominent founders. We don't have celebrities. It's very peer led. Everything is horizontal. We have a democratic structure for electing a board of directors, and meetings on the ground have almost all of the control over how things operate. The book itself is non-copyright. It's Creative Commons, which I love, which means anyone can make a copy, can modify it, can use it however they want. For example, if you want to do a translation, you just have to use the right license and it'll be free and you'll never have to pay anyone. I love that about it. We are compatible with other programs. That's explicitly stated. We are not jealous that there's no, you are absolutely allowed to do other programs. We try not to promote other programs inside of our meetings just to avoid confusion and conflict, but we actively encourage people to find recovery wherever they want to. And so, yeah, that was this Buddha section, which is a bit of a grab bag, but Buddha means awakening. And when we say the Buddha, we refer to the man, of course, but Gautama from ancient India. But why was he called the Buddha? That word means awakening, and he was just the awakened one. And so, in Recovery Dharma, we take refuge in the Buddha as an inspiration for ourselves also being awakened to one degree or another. Of course, we're not expecting all of us to achieve nibbana and like have a complete cessation of all craving, but we will awaken to how our lives can be healthier, how our lives can be full of things that fulfill us rather than things that hurt us. Okay. Part 2 is Dharma, and Dharma means a bunch of different stuff, and it's in our name, Recovery Dharma, so it must be important. In the context of Buddhism, it generally refers to the collection of all of the Buddhist teachings together, and it also means everything as they are. Like in English, you might say the laws of nature. Dharma is used in that sense. And so the teachings of the Buddha are kind of the laws of nature according to the Buddha, et cetera, et cetera. We study the Dharma, both the specific recovery Dharma, the introductory version of it that you find in the book, as well as digging deeper into all of Buddhism outside of the book, right? It's a program that is like a stepping stone in a way to all the other material. But we focus on this because it was designed to be simple. So, what are some of the really important teachings that you're going to learn about if you come to Recovery Dharma meetings? So, one of the things that we talk about is the Four Noble Truths, and I won't number them. I'm just going to tell you what they mean, which is that we have suffering in this life and it's inevitable. So, Buddhism absolutely takes for granted that suffering is going to happen. We don't try and avoid suffering, we try to come to terms with it and lessen it. And so we try not to suffer more than we have to over things. And we see that addiction is a source of so much suffering. We suffer when we hurt ourselves. We suffer when we don't have money. We suffer when we lie to people. It's just like a pool of never-ending suffering. And of course, if we can stop being addicted and stop doing those things that are harming us, of course our lives will be better. So, but how, and what is the cause of suffering in Buddhism is craving. And that is like very real. The Buddha's first teaching was these Four Noble Truths, and his point was we're going to suffer. And the reason we're going to suffer is because we crave things and we can never have the things that we want. They'll never be perfect enough to satisfy us. And then, so how can we suffer less is to stop craving things, is to stop wanting things to be the way we want them to be and needing them to be the way we want them to be, right? And so you could see how the letting go of this craving, right? It's acceptance. And I like to think that the essence of Buddhism is accepting and letting go. There's a word we use, equanimity, which it's an English word, but you don't hear it a lot outside of Buddhism. And it means that kind of accepting and letting go. It means that kind of balance, right? When there's good things, we don't freak out about how good they are and try to get them to last forever. And when there's bad things, we don't freak out about how bad they are and how they might last forever, right? We just let things come and go. We stay chill, we accept, and as a result, we don't suffer extra. And in our experience, in the experience of Buddhism, when you stay equanimous about the world, better things happen to you. You become a better person who doesn't get in fights and doesn't draw conflict into your life and doesn't draw harm into your life. And your life becomes easier. And when the inevitable bad things happen, they don't hurt nearly as much. You can make it through them without suffering. And for addiction, it's so important because we've seen over and over again, if you're in the midst of addiction, if you're someone who comes back and forth to recovery, you know that it's those moments of suffering where your sobriety falters. And so in Recovery Dharma, we focus on cultivating a sense of peace and acceptance so that we can make it through those rough patches and have a recovery that is both easy going, easeful, peaceful, and resilient, because it can last through. You can take that training of equanimity and apply it to difficult situations. So how do we get equanimity beyond just telling each other, hey, if you just accept and let go everything that happens, you'll be happy. Oh, isn't that convenient? So how can we get there? And one of the big answers, and it's a fundamental building block of Recovery Dharma, is, of course, meditation. We meditate the way the Buddha taught, in all different types of meditations, to train our minds to be mindful, right? And you get that word mindfulness, and it means the ancient Indian word sati means remembering. And that's the essence of mindfulness, is always remembering to pay attention to what's going on in our thoughts at any given moment. And the meditation is just a really good training for that, where you sit still and quiet, and one way or another, you watch your mind, you watch what's happening, and you cultivate a muscle. It's a muscle of sort of controlling your mind, influencing your mind, observing your mind, so that out in the world, you have this strong power to say, oh, I'm angry. Which seems easy, but right, we all know how hard it is to just say, I'm angry, and then maybe say, I'm angry, I'm gonna leave instead of fighting with this person, or I'm angry, I'm not gonna send an email when I'm angry, I should send this when I'm relaxed. Um, Meditation, very, very important. We do it at every meeting. Meetings usually have a 20-minute meditation. Recovery Dharma has a whole set of very accessible meditations that you could check out, that last about 20 minutes and don't take for granted any religiousness or experience that you might have, right? If you go looking for other meditations, you might find all kinds of complicated stuff for advanced meditators, or weird stuff that asks you to like chant and pray and stuff. Recovery Dharma is going to avoid all that and stick to what is often associated with secular meditation, right? You have the one where you watch your breath, and you're basically just trying to pay attention to your breath. And of course, what happens is your mind goes crazy. And then you 2 minutes later, you're like, whoa, I've been thinking for 2 minutes straight. I haven't paid attention to my breath. And you come back to your breath and you stay chill. And that's the thing. It's not about getting it perfect and never having a thought and never losing your breath. It's about coming back to your breath over and over again. Just like all of life is about getting a little bit lost and getting back on track. There's other meditations where you look at your whole body, and then there's a whole type called metta, loving kindness meditation, also called there's a bunch of names for it, compassion meditation, equanimity. And in those, you might repeat a bunch of phrases like, may I be safe and loved, may I be free from suffering. And what you're doing there is just cultivating positive emotions. Part of Buddhism is being someone who's full of love. And that's very cheesy. And as a former Catholic, it sounds like prayer sometimes to repeat those phrases, but it's a very important part of Buddhist meditation, because we can't just, have these minds of like pure abstract neutrality. We also need to be overall positive. We have to have a beautiful intention towards the world. So a part of Recovery Dharma is actively working to undermine the toxic elements of our personality by cultivating positive elements that we all want to be loving and kind and generous and compassionate. And so just we take some time to actually practice that. And it's a really valuable part of it, and it's a really beautiful part of it. Some people might find it annoying at first, but stick with it and see if you can find a place for it in your heart. And for other people, you're going to love it from the start. And it's a really nice sort of like, it's the sweet version of meditation that balances out the kind of cold and potentially bitter feeling ones. Meditation is essential in Buddhism. It's essential in Recovery Dharma. You can think that you can just learn the Dharma and study the teachings without meditating, but I think you'll find it works a lot better when you do them together and have that mix and balance. And of course, just to bring it back to comparing to other programs, prayer is really important in the 12-step programs, and often people skip it to their detriment, and in Recovery Dharma, we don't skip prayer day. It's meditation is every day is meditation day, ideally. All right, so we accept and let go of our addictions. We accept and let go of our craving, and we accept and let go of our trauma, all the bad things that have happened. And early recovery dharma can be full of working through a lot of hard things. It's like starting therapy. You got to dig up some ugliness. You're an archaeologist a little bit. But then whatever comes up, you learn to just say, oh, there it is. That's how it is. It's not any other way. Can I be okay with that? And we practice that over and over with everything, whether it's in our past, our future, our present. And it lets us find a peace with the world that no longer requires us to run away and flee from it by doing our addictions, whatever they might be. Okay, another major aspect of the Dharma that I'll mention is ethics. And ethics is boring, and we don't often like to think about ethics, but in Buddhism, it's a really, and as with most religions, being ethical, being a good person who does good things and makes the world better, just it makes it so much easier to be a happy person. It feels good. There's a term called the bliss of blamelessness, that we experience this joy when we look back at the last week and say, I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't do anything bad. And look at these good things I did. Not that it's like a score, karma's not a number. But it's a feeling that you have when you know you're doing good things. And so part of Recovery Dharma is following these things called the precepts. And it's things like don't steal, don't lie. And one of them is don't get messed up, stay sober. Like don't do things that make your mind, mindless. Don't remain mindful, and you can't remain mindful when you're high. All right. So end of the Dharma section. The Dharma means the teachings and the truth. And so by taking refuge in the Dharma, we are accepting to learn some of the truths of Buddhist teachings, and try to take them seriously, and to engage with the truth, engage with the laws of nature, the things as they are, history and the future, without pushing against them, without fighting them, and with a sense of acceptance and letting go. All right. So the third refuge is Sangha. And that's the word we're probably least familiar with, but it's easy. It means community. In Buddhism, it used to mean just Buddha and his monks and monastics. In Recovery Dharma, it means everyone who's participating, right? And this is like all religion, all recovery groups. Being with other people is a very important part of recovery. Doing it alone, you can do it, but our recovery can be more resilient, more joyful, and more rewarding when we do it with other people to bounce ideas off. I learned so much from the people I'm with. I'm 5 years sober on chemicals. I'm not 5 years sober on my process addictions, the things like on the computer in my life, that repetitive actions that I know are bad for me, but I do them anyway. And I apply Recovery Dharma to that. And so it's always useful to be hearing from people at meetings. New people, even in long-term recovery, new people are an inspiration. They remind you why you're there. They remind you what you went through, and they remind you how you're still going through it in different ways about different things, and of course, I imagine the people in the meetings with me learn from me and my long-term recovery, and I can give them a sense of perspective, as well as, we inspire each other to say, look, it's possible, you can do it. These other people are here, so it must be something that is attainable. Whereas in addiction, of course, we often feel it's unattainable. The other aspect of community that's really important is service. The chance to help others is part of the ethics stuff I already talked about. And participating in meetings, even just coming to meetings, and when the sharing starts and no one wants to share, be the first one to share. Being that person who puts themselves out there, starts the conversation, gets it going in a wholesome direction, right? These things are so rewarding, and it's worth the time. And I really appreciate the Recovery Dharma Sangha, the community, for being so sweet and wholesome. I find people are often really chill and they're non-judgmental and they're not telling you what to do. They're just helping show the way, like the Buddha did. He didn't tell people they had to do X, Y, or Z. He said, you could do this and you'll feel better. Wouldn't you like to? The Recovery Dharma Sangha, a couple things I love about it is that we are progressive and inclusive. We don't tolerate racism. We don't tolerate sexism. We were built on a foundation of strong anti-oppressive politics. And so we can take for granted things like people saying their pronouns and things like that. And if you don't like that, there's a BIPOC meeting for people of color, then tough nuts. We are a program that is safe and inclusive, and that's a priority. And I love that. Great. So Sangha, we take refuge in the Sangha, and that means community. So that is my little version of Recovery Dharma. It's not whole. You want the whole thing? Go grab the book. 100% recommended. Like I said, go grab a meeting. Go grab 5. It's all about starting. Just start it up. Go to a meeting and you'll learn about the program. You'll try meditation. If you haven't tried meditation before, tricking yourself into it by going to a meeting, 100% recommended. That's how I was terrified of meditation. I was not going to do it. I started going to meetings and I was like, well, here I am, time to meditate. And I do it every day now. 5 years, almost 5 years in a row, every day of meditation. 100% recommend it. All right. I think that's enough. If you like this video, if you want to hear more from me, you can like and subscribe. I'm hoping to make a whole series of videos about different aspects of Recovery Dharma. You can go check my channel. I have a bunch of recorded meditations you can check out, as well as some videos about Recovery Dharma stuff that are a little more weird and advanced so far, but go look at the channel and see what's there. I hope it's useful to you. I'm going to end, as we often do in Recovery Dharma meetings, with a dedication of merit. This is a Buddhist tradition where we say, hey, did what we do have a positive influence? Like we're taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of each other. Well, let's send it out to everyone in the world instead of hoarding it. Let's say if we have like a magic kind of merit, and we're getting into some Buddhist stuff, what if we send it to others rather than keeping it for ourselves? And the secret is you do get to keep it, because when you send it out, you're also being good. And I think it's a good example of Buddhist philosophy of like cultivating that sense of generosity and goodness and love in yourself by sharing it to others. Okay, so that's what a dedication of merit is. I guess I just love dedications of merit, so I wanted to talk a bunch about it. But I'll read this one because it sort of elucidates the recovery. This is the official Recovery Dharma dedication of merit. Refuge does not arise in a particular place, but in the space within the goodness of our hearts. When this space is imbued with wisdom, respect, and love, we call it Sangha. We hope that the pain of addiction, trauma, and feeling apart leads us back towards the heart, and that we might understand compassion, wisdom, and change ever more deeply. As we have learned from this practice, great pain does not erase goodness, but in fact informs it. May we make the best use of our practice, and whatever freedom arises from our efforts today, may this be a cause and condition for less suffering and more safety in our world. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope to see you at a Recovery Dharma meeting soon. I love you. Bye-bye.